Hello, hello, hello. A very warm welcome to all our viewers, our friends, fans of Africa Rise with Susan West, stakeholders. Yes, it is another Friday. And like I said, it's going to become the norm that we will be broadcasting on Fridays as well in 2021. Um, because there are salient issues to talk about or tackle all the time, and we cannot wait for Sundays only to broadcast. And so please do the needful. As you join this broadcast, remember to create watch parties, share this broadcast, invite your friends. And if you haven't liked, followed, or subscribed to our channels, please do so. It is SWOB21, SWOB21 on Facebook and _ Susan West on Instagram and YouTube. All right. So today our guest is going to be Mr. Omoyele Sowore. In a moment, I will be bringing him on. But in the meantime, we'll take a commercial break.
It's been a great pleasure being on Africa Rise and the fact that you focus on African issues. And I would urge you to continue. And I hope that more and more people pay attention to the leaders that you bring to speak on Africa Rise, and that this will translate into some change for the better for our continent. Congratulations.
Okay! This is your numero uno, and my name is Charlie Boy, the area father. You're the very one of Africa, and the president of all frustrated Nigerians. Keep it real with Susan West. Yes, this is the channel where they like to watch when I won't get sand. You know?
Africa Rise with Susan West.
Welcome back. Yes, Princess Ivy Osawe, welcome, early bird. Thank you for joining us. Remember to do the needful, share this broadcast, invite your friends, and let's keep the conversation rolling. As usual, send in your questions and comments. And of course, we will take as much as we can. And right about now, I will bring on Mr. Omoyele Sowore. Good evening from London, Mr. Sowore.
It's good evening from Abuja as well. Thank you, too.
Nice to have you here. And so really quickly, we're just going to go into today's conversation, which is politics in Africa, the old versus the new. And who better to have on this topic? Fantabilo Kale, welcome. And so politics in Africa is not politics like elsewhere around the world, like you find. And of course, you have firsthand experience and knowledge of what it means as a young person, as a new person coming on the scene in the political sphere in Africa. So quickly just run us through your experience as a young person who wants to bring about change and meaningful development to your society and trying to get involved in politics in your country, Nigeria.
Well, I don't even know where to take it from, but first, I'm not that new in, politically speaking. I've been a political activist for over 30 years. And I was one of the people when I was really, really young, who fought against military rule in Nigeria and helped to ease the military out of power. And then I've since then done several other political things and made political efforts to change Nigeria. But I guess the point to make is that politics on the continent is a very sad spot. Because we have a lot of old entrenched interests right from the colonial days. Some of them, I was telling you just now that I've been around for 30 years doing this. But the president of Cameroon has been around for 30-something years, more than I have been. The president of Uganda has been around for such a long time. The president of Guinea-Bissau has been around for a long time. There are some people in these places who've never seen a different country. A different leader, a different president. So you can imagine how boring it is to live in Cameroon and you've never participated in free and fair elections, never voted for something different from the boring, old, haggard dinosaurs or dinosaur that's running your country. In our own case, we have actually never allowed them to stay around for that long. That's to say, maybe Nigeria has had only a president for 9 years, and that's been the longest time. Since then, it was as if there was a secret pact amongst Nigerians never to allow people who want to perpetuate themselves in power to do so. But it is not enough to say that. The ideas that have been running Nigeria is as old as 60 years uh, of age. When it, I mean, what am I saying? The ideas running Nigeria is like 100 years old men living in the past, imposing themselves and forcing their ideas down the throat of the Nigerian people. It's usually a country that has a very young population. I think about 70% of Nigerians, according to statistics that's available everywhere, are below the age of 40. So for people like me, I came on board with the hope of bringing that experience to bear on the country in 2018. That's the first time I got engaged in partisan politics. Don't forget, I've always been part of politics, just never joined a political party. In fact, I've never voted before until 2019. So, because, I have this aversion to the people they call politicians. Like if they call you a politician in Nigeria, it's like another name for a thief,
Yes.
a dishonest person, a dissembler, uh, trustworthy person. So I didn't want to share in that affiliation at all. So I restricted myself to just fighting against these characters, either physically, using, frontline methods by engaging in protests, or when I did media, using media as a way of fighting back, and several other ways of organizing against them. But when I came on board in 2018 and 2019, I discovered that nothing has changed. And nothing probably will change except we force change on the continent of Africa. And now whoever is in doubt about this, just look at what just happened in Uganda with Bobby Wine and, their own dinosaur over there.
Absolutely.
Who, made everybody just revile, politicking on the continent of Africa. How do you do this? How do you have a guy who's been around for 30 plus years come back again and run a country of young people? When he can't even relate to them, he can't relate to their needs, their aspirations, and desires for a better society. He's been there, never made any real difference. So Uganda is our latest injury in our own political world of youthfulness.
Right. That brings me to, I wanted to ask you, Mr. Museveni have been in power since 1986. 1986. And to think that he came on board also as someone who was fighting against the system. And I would have imagined that he wanted the people around that time would have thought that he had something to offer. He fought against Idi Amin's government and then he took over, only to stay on the job for over 30 years. And so suddenly it's become a monarchy. Like until he dies, nothing will ever happen, as far as taking him out. But, with Bobby Wine coming on board and, sticking it through and paying the price of losing a lot of his friends and young supporters, how I know that recently even Femi Falana had gotten involved in the case where he's been under house arrest, even after the elections have been rigged and Museveni have been declared the winner. He's still kept under arrest. How would you analyze the situation in Uganda and in comparison to what you have to face in Nigeria?
It's multi-dimensional. When I say so, I mean when you look at the Ugandan election, you can't even think about it the way it ended. but we also must not forget that Africa remains in an institutional failure.
mm,
It fails in every ramification whenever it presents itself. The question you ask yourself is, where's the African Union regarding what happened in Uganda? Where is the rest of the world? United Nations, all the people who claim they support and love democracy.
mm,
How come they're all keeping quiet now? I even heard the EU observer mission said it was free and fair election, and then they reversed themselves some 24 hours ago.
mm,
That tells you that Africa continues to remain, the guinea pig of these Western nations for terrible ideas. And for your own information, Yoweri Museveni couldn't have been in power for this long if he wasn't getting aid from the West. If it
mm,
wasn't the Western lackey that they were using for some of their agenda on the continent of Africa.
mm,
But I just feel very sad about what happened in Uganda, and I think it's a wake up call not just for Uganda but for the African continent, young people, to figure out a way to key into the technology that can connect all of us together, to start fighting and a continent-wide battle against these wicked dictators wherever they might rear their ugly heads. Because it's obvious that international institutions have failed to live up to the expectations of citizens of countries like Uganda.
mm,
Femi Falana is also my lawyer, as you know. He's fighting to get me out of city arrest. And now he has to go fight for Bobby Wine to get out of house arrest. I've been staying in Abuja for more than a year now, after I was physically detained in the detention facility for 5 months in 2019. Femi Falana is the person fighting all that battle, and he has to go to Uganda. Uh, but what I'm saying is that we need a lot more than one Femi Falana. We should have all these African lawyers speak up by this time. African intellectuals write about this, and African, entertainers, influencers on social media come together. And, we should use Uganda as a way of teaching these dinosaurs that
mm,
Africa is not longer ready for their style of politics. But that hasn't happened yet. Although I listened to Bobby Wine today, I'm so happy that
mm,
he's starting to talk about a revolution.
mm,
He mentioned it several times, that this is a time for a revolution. And this is what we have always said in Nigeria when we started revolution now in 2019. That you see, you can't defeat these guys in their own game.
mm,
African dictators, they are versed in election rigging, manipulation, intimidation, harassment before, during, and after elections. And they've gone a step further by tampering with technology, which is the most powerful tool in the hands of these hapless electorates. They
mm.
shut down the internet in Uganda, and I guarantee you, somebody else is waiting in the wings in one of these African countries to do the same when it's time for their own election too. So
It is.
except we all bond together and have a coordinated response to attack this recent assault on the dignity of the African person. We're not going anywhere. You can't defeat them in the elections.
Mm,
You can't. It's just like going to a football game where the referee works for your opponent.
mm.
You can't win.
Right. I'm just going to play a short clip of Bobby Wine's broadcast today. Just a very short. Take a
No
few
problem.
minutes of it. Awesome. Sorry, I think we couldn't get the audio up. We'll try
Yeah.
again. But
Yeah.
in the meantime, I'll take a short read from Tunji Big Sam Ofei. He says, Sowore, don't you think Sunday Igboho is taking laws into his hands? I don't know who that is. And
Right.
he says, don't you think Sunday Igboho is confrontational? His confrontational approach is wrong. I'm sorry that I don't know who he's talking about. Princess Ivy says, Mandela himself, greetings from Canada. And Diane Medway says the Don himself. So if you're sure of what Tunji is talking about, you want to react to that?
Yeah, let me respond first to the person who's comparing me to Mandela. I'm not even qualified to sweep his graveyard. So it's a powerful man. So, and he's not an ancestor of ours. So we call on him to please let freedom reign in Uganda. With regards to Sunday, Tunji, who was asking that question, I understand it. I know the person is talking about this, an event going on in Nigeria, which has to do with this portion of some people known as Fulani herdsmen from a part of Nigeria. It's a very controversial matter. There's a guy who seems to have taken on the battle to expel these people from a section of a part of Nigeria. I cannot, in good conscience, support the expulsion of anybody from any part of Africa, except of Nigeria. So, but I understand that wherever there's failure of government, people are bound to take laws into their hands because the Nigerian state has failed citizens at every level, and there's probably zero security for people, physical security, economic security, and as a result, people are looking always for those they can outsource their worries and their security to. And this guy seems to be filling the void now. But in the long run, it is not the job of anybody to fight crime on an individual level. It is the job of government, and government has failed, and this is just a result of a failure of government. What we should not overlook is that, if we start expelling Nigerians from our part of the country because we don't like them, because their name don't sound like our own, when their own part of the country start expelling those whose names sound like ours, we should not complain. But that's not the way the country should be run. I'm not going to get involved in what's happening in that part of the world. I'm more interested in what's happening at the level of Nigeria, where I'm interested in changing the despicable and failed leadership so that what Tunji's complaining about will not happen again ever in Nigeria's history and by extension Africa.
Right. When you were talking earlier, you did mention the African Union, and I was so shocked when I listened to one of their press releases, and they were talking about the elections in Uganda being free and fair or something like that. To that, and in a few days from now, there's going to be an election in the African Union Commission itself. And one of the issues at the African Union Commission is that the sitting chairman, Mr. Musa Faki Mahamat, is going to be running unopposed. And the truth is, there were loads of people who wanted to run against him, but he somehow stifled them so that he is not running, no one is running against him. The reason why a lot of people are frowning at it is because, just like Museveni, it's not like he's been there for 4 years and he hasn't made any difference. If at all, it's come to the knowledge of most people on the continent and in the diaspora that he is like a stooge for France or the French government. And so how do you think, in your opinion, we can get to that place where we, the people, the young people of the continent of Africa, can take our own destiny in our hands?
When the election in Uganda was stolen, if you go to my Facebook, I wrote, a small note to the people of Uganda, and I said they should take their destiny in their own hands and rise to a revolutionary mode because uh, Museveni has just robbed the people of Uganda.
Mm.
And I said there, I used an analogy that if a robber robs a bank successfully and goes on with the loot, and we know where the robber is, do we say that because he succeeded in robbing the bank, we should not challenge them?
Mm.
No, we should go after the loot and take it back from him and prosecute him or her or the group. That's the way I see Uganda. You know, yes, you've done an election, a robber took away your mandate. Go after the robber and take your mandate back. And forever and ever, no robber, a group of robbers would find it funny or necessary or acceptable or desirable, not use the word acceptable, desirable to rob again because they will understand that the people of Uganda don't accept this kind of nonsense. And that should be the same for other African nations. Because if you let him get away with it, you are also encouraging other election thieves, or electoral thieves on the continent. They will borrow a lead from Uganda, shut down the internet whenever they want to steal the mandate of the people, and then expect that everybody will say, "Oh, go and wait for another 4 years or 5 years." I cannot imagine the people of Uganda under this dinosaur for another 5 years. How are they going to survive it?
Mm.
It's unacceptable. I've never been to Uganda before, but I feel their pain. Even, I don't know, I just felt like I was robbed myself. So that's
Absolutely.
why I'm so happy to hear from Bobby Wine today when he's talking about the revolution. We need a revolution. There's no way it is. There's no country in the world today that's doing well that hasn't had some form of revolution, either industrial revolution, military revolution, a civil revolution. Some kind of revolution has to happen in this African country so that we teach them, the African horrible leaders, a lesson of their lives, so that nobody will come after them who will try to repeat this kind of nonsense that they continue to perpetrate on the continent of Africa.
Right. You
Yep.
know, I was going to ask, we because there is no rule of law, is it? Where they don't respect the rule of law in most of the African countries. The leaders or the people in power don't. And if you would, you also cited the reason why Museveni have been in power for this long is because he's got support from the Western world.
Yes.
How would you talk to young Africans and make them understand that regardless of the fact that when the West supports a particular candidate, they're able to, you know, impose their will on the rest of Africa and stay in power. How would you advise young people on the continent to say that if there is no, if there is no, if they say when a thief comes to your house most of the time to steal, and there is not a person in the house to cooperate with that person outside, they cannot successfully continue to do that or even succeed at all. So, what strategies will young people on the continent have to, um, use to make sure that regardless whether Europe or America is in support of a particular leader who is not the people's leader or ruler or president, what are the strategies they should begin to look at to make sure that they, the young people who are in the majority, um, take back their future, so to speak?
You see, Africans, all of us, especially young people, we need what I call a post-colonial restoration of dignity. There's also too much heavy reliance on the West. We look up to them for everything. We look up to them for spirituality, religion, fashion. We look up to them for culture, We look up to them for even things that we know how to do. We still look up to the West, teach us how to do that. So, and most importantly, or sadly, we look up to just running to the West at the slightest opportunity. And I'm guilty of this too. I spent 20 years in the US. But after a while, I realized that the only thing that can give Africans the kind of dignity and the government and respect they deserve in the world is to restore African dignity. That is to say to these white people or the West or whomever we look up to, including now China, that we can govern ourselves, and we don't have to bow to them in any way. We don't have to, but you can't achieve that aim, you can't achieve that objective without replacing these rickety leaders on the continent.
Yeah.
Because imagine that the president of France is 32 years old. He can summon all the African leaders to meet him in Paris tomorrow, and they will be killing themselves, to be the first to arrive there. You understand? So it's how do you do that? How do all African leaders just run to France, run to UK, run to America, and it's because they govern the continent so terribly that they need guidance and support from these people. Whereas all the resources come out of Africa. There's virtually nothing you see today that even all the technological tools that is putting me and you together today come from the African earth. Copper, the coltan, gold, silver, everything that is making the internet work has an African component to it. So why are we always just not discovering ourselves? Like I keep saying, when I finished school at Columbia University in New York City, as I was done, my classmates were getting jobs that were giving them $50,000 sign-on bonus to work at Shell in Nigeria. I couldn't find a job that could pay me that $5,000 a year. I mean, a month. I mean, yes, a year. Yeah. So you look at that disparity. Meanwhile, they're going to take the oil from my country. They're going to take it from Niger Delta region, where I come from. So Africans must reorganize themselves. Africa must rediscover Africa. We must put back our Africanness. And this means also that what even guides us spiritually comes from the continent of Africa, not from without Africa. Everything must come from within. And the moment we get this right, you will see that people will start respecting us. They can't respect you when you don't respect yourself. And they prefer this, I'm sorry to use the word idiots, as African leaders, than have sound, intelligent African young people run their countries. Because they know we know the game, we know the trick. So you can't run circles around us. You can't run circle around me if I'm president of Nigeria. If I were to be president of Nigeria, what is happening in Uganda today will not be happening. I guarantee you that. I will exert that Nigerianness in me and the greatness of Nigeria, the power of Nigeria, the wealth of Nigeria, to make sure that the elections in Uganda is free and fair. And if it's not, I'll be the first to condemn it and tell, Museveni to FUCK off. Stand with the Ugandan people until he's disgraced out of office. I would do that as Nigeria's president. Now you imagine what that would mean for people of Ivory Coast, people of Guinea, the Central African Republic, and several other African countries who are laboring under the yoke of these African mediocre leaders.
As you were talking, let me just recognize Koti Ekapong, sorry. Koti, welcome. Welcome, darling, and Agnes Cascat. And of course, Glory Grace Chen, and welcome. Tunji has asked another question, but I'm going to first of all ask you though, well, let me take Tunji's question first. He said, I understand Sowore'S comrade, Olawale Bakare, is now in the UK. How come his mentor Sowore is still under city arrest when they were arraigned for the same offense? Or is Sowore the real threat?
I was in detention on January. I rearrested again on January 1st, and I spent 11 days in detention. So it wasn't until I came back that I heard that Olawale Bakare had left Nigeria. So I don't know the details, and I don't know what happened yet. And when I do so, probably I'll be able to talk about it.
Right.
But as to who the real threat is, every one of us who is fighting for a better Nigeria is a threat to the dictatorship here.
Right. I wanted to ask you, if you could turn back the hands of time from before the Buhari's administration came into being, if you could, what would be the things that you would have done differently?
I have maintained a consistent position on leadership in Nigeria. The only thing I could have done differently would have been to contest against Buhari in 2015. I feel like I came a little bit late to the game by waiting till 2019. And if we started at that time, I think it would have been different by now, because that alternative that was presented in 2019, if it came in 2015, even if we didn't win, people would have had like a credible alternative to look up to in 2019.
Right.
Even though a credible alternative in 2019, it's a lot of people were still very doubtful. Were still very doubtful of it. But then, just to circumvent whatever could be the real change in 2019, the Buhari regime did not organize the election. It was like it's one that Museveni did. It was a bootleg election.
Right. So a lot of Nigerians regret. A lot of Nigerians, some people didn't really want someone like President Buhari to be in office, but they were indifferent after a while because they cast back their minds to the 80s and thought that he had the discipline to correct certain things. Right now, there are loads of Nigerians who regret the fact that they feel like they were deceived. They feel like they were told lies about the administration that was in place before Buhari's administration, which is Goodluck Jonathan's government. I want you to take a moment and compare and contrast Jonathan's administration to Buhari's administration, and why Nigeria, if Nigeria is in a worse off position now.
See, you can't even start the comparison without looking far way beyond the two of them. It's just like saying that, two blind people are better, that one could see better than the other when their level of blindness is the same. And I'm not in any way using this to describe or denigrate people who have physical disabilities. I'm just making an analogy. What has become Nigeria's loss is that whenever we have a president, the next one is always worse than the last one. So, look, if we continue making the mistake we make now, or that brought about Jonathan or Buhari or whomever was there, in the next dispensation, we will still say that Buhari is even better than the next one. Because Nigeria has been known to progressively degenerate, leader after leader. So to say that Jonathan was better than Buhari is part of this experience. But Jonathan is not better than Buhari. They're all the same. They're the same incompetent, corrupt, provincial, criminally minded elites in the country, running the country. That's true. That's true.
Um, somebody else would argue differently, because there have been corruption in Nigeria from the inception of the amalgamation of Nigeria, even before the amalgamation of Nigeria. Koti Ekpeyong says, why do I keep calling Ekpeyong today? Sorry, Koti. Koti Ekapong. We are still regretting all she says. You know, Nigeria was the biggest economy on the Jonathan, on the African continent. Even though it wasn't perfect, a lot of people didn't have the kind of struggles that they and the realities that they are faced with today. So there are people who would beg to differ that Jonathan was that bad. And of course, when it comes to insecurity, of course, certain elements of the security challenges that was under Jonathan is not happening now, simply because it was the instruments they used to make sure that his government failed, in some of our opinions.
No, I don't know why you argue that somebody can make somebody's government fail. If in another 4 years, in 2.5 years, somebody tells you that somebody sabotaged the Buhari regime, would you accept it? People should take responsibility for what they asked for. You know, when you take the mandate of the people, you don't turn around and say somebody made your government fail. No. It's just like you go into an examination and you say that because the invigilator is close to you, you failed. That means you didn't study. If you studied, it didn't matter your distance to the or from the invigilator. You know, what am I trying to say here is that it's been an argument that is used to suit our very, very destroyed psyche in Nigeria. That somehow we want to find solace that, all our bad situations, some are better than others. Nobody should be confined or consigned to this kind of mentality or thinking. Jonathan squandered Nigeria's wealth. It was under Jonathan that schoolgirls were abducted. Under Buhari, schoolboys were abducted. Under Jonathan, massive corruption, stealing. One of his ministers is still in the UK with you there, hiding out because of how much money she stole. I'm talking about Alice Desian. She had juries that could build universities. I'm exaggerating here a bit. But are you saying that people who deprive Nigeria of their wealth, deprive them of the opportunity and better life, are better than this same one who are doing the same thing? Because it seemed at that time that things were a little better. I don't know how people came about this kind of thinking. And it is part of the thinking that has to be jettisoned so that we can rescue ourselves from the situation, because that thinking is going to lead us back to Jonathan's party or former party, the PDP. Because if you think Jonathan is good or a little better than Buhari, you're saying that you deserve PDP before Buhari's party cared about. Nobody should go back to that kind of situation. It's total physical and mental abuse that should never have happened. It should never have happened. And nobody should make this kind of arguments that Jonathan somehow was better than Buhari. Yes, I agree that Buhari is totally a failure, but Jonathan was equally a terrible Nigerian president. So only history will judge all of these failed leaders when you put them together. Which one failed us the most? But all of them are failed leaders. They failed Nigerian people. They have disappointed and disgraced Nigeria at various times when they were in charge of the country. There's no reason to celebrate one failure over another.
Right. We might be suffering on the continent, or as Black people, we might be suffering from Stockholm syndrome, where we end up loving our captors.
Yes, not impossible.
So I want to ask you, probably, if you were elected Nigeria's president, how and what would you do differently so that we don't judge you the same way that you have judged all the people who have been there before you?
Let me exaggerate something, but it's true. I believe it. if I was elected Nigeria's president and I went to sleep the day after I was sworn in, and I wake up the day my tenure is over, I would have done better. I could do better than all the Nigerian leaders combined together. That's an exaggeration, but it is how good I feel about my ability to have performed around a lot of issues. And what are the issues? There is no confusion on my side as to how Nigeria should be governed and what needs to be priority over another. Like I will prioritize security, and next it will be energy, power, electricity. I could never leave Nigeria. I can never meet Nigeria in darkness and leave it in darkness, knowing what I know about how to uh, provide electricity, power, right?
Mm.
So, yes, I can never do that. I can never leave Nigeria in a state of infrastructure decay that it has now. I can't leave Nigeria in the state of corruption that it is now, or the state of education that it is now, or the need to restructure Nigeria so that different components at every level control resources that belong to them, or have control over functions that are even sometimes spelled out in the constitution, but these guys, because they don't know their left from their right, I don't know what to do. We can't even, debate what Nigeria should be as a transportation hub, as a cultural hub, as a powerhouse for the continent of Africa, as a moral authority on political, economic, cultural, and even religious matters on the continent of Africa. Nobody should, there's no even need to debate that. These are simple things we would have hit the ground running. Is it healthcare or modern agriculture? But as I keep saying, in those days that we were running for office, you cannot put an analog leadership in charge of a digital society and expect to get good results. So there's a lot I will do, and I've spoken extensively about it, and I just kind of, mentioned some of it to you just now, and it would have been El Dorado. I was looking at some of my clips, even yesterday, I posted one on Facebook where we talked about police brutality. As of 2019, after the election, I mentioned that we needed to scrap the notorious police unit known as Special Anti-Robbery Squad. By which day, by now, it wouldn't have become a problem that led to NSAS uprising in 2020. I proposed the abrogation of the Senate, that we can make do with a unicameral legislative system. I was insulted for it during the campaigns. Now everybody's advocating for it, that this bicameral legislative system is too expensive and we don't need it. So I, even on the small side, as somebody was mentioned on the side, Tingy said that I proposed the legalization of cannabis, because Nigeria is the biggest, farmer. And Nigeria farmers, there's a lot of cannabis farmers in Nigeria. That product is wasting away here. That could have become a major revenue generator for us. But they said I was crazy, and I said it. Now the National Assembly in Nigeria is proposing a bill to legalize and export marijuana. So there's so many things that my brain is like working over, overdrive on how to make Nigeria work. And I hope people understand this. Sometimes when I say these things, it came from clairvoyance, and some of it also come from
The network. The network is interfering. But I'll take a quick recognition of Imabang Smart, my dear sister, watching from Dallas, she says. Tunji, I'm sure you heard what he was talking about before the network, interfered. You asked a question about the marijuana project plan. And of course, even without me reading out the question, he was already responding to that. I'm not sure what's going on right now, but I do hope that, um, yes, I do hope that he's able to, the internet is able to. I'll just take him off screen and then try to see if he can rejoin for our final question and close for today. Well, ladies and gentlemen, just before Sowore'S internet cut out, he was talking about some things that he was criticized about. And one of the things, of course, that I want to bring to the attention of Black people around the world is the fact that everything that is Black and beautiful was demonized and made to look ugly. And suddenly, in this generation, it's come back full circle. The same people who made us feel like those things that we wear or we have was not good, was not, and it wasn't promoted. These same things are things that they are longing to have. So the moment we begin to understand how blessed, how empowered, how powerful we are, the earlier the better. We shouldn't always wait for the West to begin to put a spotlight on what we have, and I mean, like, for instance, once upon a time, it was something that was it was something we should be upset or ashamed of. African women's figure. Now you have people in the West going to pay so much money to have that figure that they've once made look like it was some kind of a disease. I mean, they don't like the gap tooth that we are blessed with as Black people. That is a sign of beauty as Africans. When you have a gap tooth, we should be proud of what we have. And of course, some of the plants that we're blessed with on the continent, for medicinal purposes, of course, we should begin to learn to, take advantage of these things that God have blessed us with, not for purposes of abuse, but so that we understand that we don't always have to wait for, people from outside to come and tell us that it's now okay to use this or use that is found on your land, that is given to you by the Almighty. We should begin to appreciate everything that we have, everything that we are, everything that is us, as Black people, as Africans. I'm not sure if Mr. Sowore is going to be able to come back quickly. I'm just going to try to message him and see if he's able to click and come back real quickly to respond to our final question and his final words for today. In the meantime, give me a moment. I'll just play commercial.
This is Femi Anikula Kukuti. You're watching Susan Rice on African West. Keep watching.
I urge all of you who know what it means to be African, all of you who may not know what it means to be African, all of you who are on the journey of awakening, all of you who need enlightenment and continued support, to tune in to Africa Rise with Susan West. And to you, Susan, as a mother, I want to thank you for all the great work that you're doing to uplift us, to continue to engage us, to inform us, and also challenging us to engage in those conversations, difficult as they may be. You are taking us there. So Susan West, Africa Rise, keep up the great work.
Africa Rise with Susan West.
Oh yeah, welcome back. We have Mr. Sowore back, and sorry about that. I know whenever we're having guests from Nigeria or from Abuja, it's usually the case. Just continue from where you stopped and go ahead and give us your final words for today.
So let me just thank you for bringing me on your show. I wish we could just continue. I was having a great time enjoying this conversation, but It's not impossible that our friends in Abuja are tampering with my telephone lines. I get this all the time. But the only assurance we have for them is that there's none of these activities of theirs that will stop the idea whose time has come. And what has come is that there is emerging on the continent of Africa a liberation generation. And we're looking at this continent the same way probably some of our forefathers or ancestors looked at it before independence. It seems to me, and I think all Africans, majority of our African brothers and sisters should start tuning their minds to that Africa is in need of fresh independence, fresh independence. And we must start thinking of ourselves as liberators of our various countries and lands. And this liberation is not going to be limited to our new colonial masters or black colonial masters or internal colonizers. We also have to go beyond that and start looking at those who have consistently engaged in colonizing and subjugating Africans, especially our new neo-colonial masters as well. And when you talk about neo-colonial masters these days, it's no longer America, China, and Britain. Sometimes we're now starting to look at Facebook too, Twitter, and Instagram. You can't believe this. These guys are colonizing our minds and tweaking some of the things we're doing, using whatever power they have to influence political opinion on the continent. So let's just broaden our minds and continue the fight. As I usually say, the struggle continues, and I'm sure if we continue the struggle the way we should, victory is certain. And don't let me forget to give a shout out to my friend, our friend in Uganda at this time, who is under house arrest. That he should keep the revolutionary spirit up, remain steadfast. I'm in city arrest too, and I'm sure a lot of Africans are starting to look at the continent of Africa as a vast prison in which they have all been.
Not again. Not again. He was just giving us his final words and giving a shout out to Bobby Wine in Uganda and the Ugandan people. He took that right away from my mouth. I wanted to say to him to talk at this moment, talk to our brothers and sisters in Uganda. And then he just went ahead, but it cut out again. I'm just going to try and see again if he's able to come back. For everyone who joined us, please remember to continue to share this broadcast even after we've come off live. We've gone off live broadcast. And if you haven't subscribed, please do so. If you're watching from YouTube, just press the subscribe button and press the bell button when you do, so that once we go live or share any new materials, you'll be the first to know. If you haven't liked and followed us, please do so. It is _Susan West on Instagram and YouTube, and it is SWOB21, SWOB21 on Facebook. Like, follow, and subscribe to all our channels. And of course, from Sunday, we will be streaming to through our website as well, so that we will no longer leave all our full broadcast on these platforms. But if you want to watch the full broadcast and you're not able to join us live, you will have to go to our website to see, to watch. So do remember, our website is www.africarise.online. Become a member. There are loads of goodies for members. And of course, I would try to see if we're able to get Mr. Sowore. Otherwise, we will just call it a day. I think he's done very well, and the network is really terrible. So I'm sure you can understand. So we already almost 55 minutes into today's broadcast. So I think we'll call it a day, because it's going to take it's probably going to take a while trying to get him back online. But thank you so much for joining us on Africa Rise with Susan West this Friday. We will be on Sunday with another interesting guest. So please remember to join us same time, 1800 hours on the GMT, which is 6 p.m. Nigeria time and 5 p.m. UK time. Okay? I love you all and God bless you. See you on Sunday. Bye-bye.